tell, but I can half fucking see what I'm doing because it's so dark in here.
It's not that dark in here. Not that bright in here either, but...
Well, when it's super dark and you're looking at fucking this black, it's kind of hard to fucking see. Ads on YouTube are the least intrusive, honestly. If you watch Twitch, I swear to God, it's like they purposely make it so it's like, oh, they're going to talk about something important or something that's interesting. Fucking 2-minute ads. Like, it drives me insane sometimes. It always happens like the worst fucking time. You're like, God damn it. So you missed the entire 2 minutes they're talking about something.
Welcome to the Desert Lair, episode 17. I'm Dustin, functional misanthrope. Dillon's here. He's a mostly functional nerd. This week, we're talking about Kin-dza-dza. First, we'll get into the news, assuming you have news, because I have none.
I have a couple.
All right.
I keep seeing stuff about Cyberpunk 2077 having updates, even though they keep saying, this is the final update. It's like, they've done this. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, you're right. I just saw that. I was like, motherfucker.
Yeah, I was just like, okay, stop saying it's the final one. Just say we're still releasing updates. It's like the third time in a row. It's like, this is the final update. Hey, we're releasing another update.
It's slightly annoying, because I waited years to play Cyberpunk to try and get the final update, which, whatever. I mean, it's probably wouldn't notice any difference, but like you said, it's kind of irritating. It's like, this is the final update. Nope, just kidding. We got another update.
Just say it's not the final one and keep going. Like,
yeah, I agree.
Blood of the Dawnwalker released like a 10-minute gameplay thing, and a lot of people were excited. There were a couple systems that are kind of, I'm not a big fan of. Like, one of them is a time-based thing. One of the overarching main story missions to save your family who got taken by vampires. Pretty much a ticking clock the entire game. They're like, you can storm the main castle and defeat the main enemy, but they're going to be max level and you're going to be level 1. I could see it making interesting and more of a time factor. In some games, you've brought up previous Witcher 3, you have to save Ciri, but it's like, let's do every side quest in the game, which, it just seems like...
Let's check out the Gwent tournament because I got a card game to play.
Yeah, well, it's like, your daughter's... Ciri's literally being chased down by the wild hunt. I would think sooner rather than later you'd want to get to it.
It's a conundrum. It's hard to make a game and put all this stuff in the game. And Witcher 3 is a really good example of that. Witcher 3 is one of the best games ever made. You're not going to find anyone who's going to argue that, or at least not too many people, but it still has these weird problems. You can't have this sense of urgency when you're at a card tournament. It's just how you have to design game. But on the other side of that spectrum, like you said, there's a few games like this, some stuff with Valkyrie Profile, Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. So, there's games that do this. But at the end of the day, it gets kind of frustrating because what it means is you're probably going to have to look up a guide, which you already do. We play dense RPGs with all these choices that you have to make. So at some point, you're going to read a guide and figure out how you want to play this game, generally. So it's not any different, but it's still annoying because sometimes you just want to wander around and do bullshit without having to think about it.
I can see both ways, but as someone who likes to do as much side content as possible before I do the main quest.
Yeah, so are you going to be able to do everything in one run? Are they going to force you to do multiple playthroughs to try and do all the side content? Personally, I don't really like games like that. It annoys me. I like to wander around sometimes, and so it's irritating when I feel like I can't do that because I'm on a clock. So
yeah, another system is the combat, which a lot of people are like, why not just make it like Witcher 3? It has a system almost like Kingdom Come Deliverance where you have to like, oh, hey, this person is attacking from the side. Well, you have to block and you have to pick the direction that you're blocking. Or when you're attacking, if they're blocking below or above, you have to attack the opposite way or another way they're not blocking for the attack to hit her. A lot of people criticize that. Kingdom Come Deliverance, the story and a lot of the quests are really nice, but the combat is an absolute slog in every way possible when I played it.
The problem with that combat style is it does not translate to a fucking computer game. It just doesn't. Maybe if you had VR, you have the controllers or the knuckles and you're more into it, but that's fun for maybe like a 15-hour game. I don't want to play a 100-hour game or a 60-hour game where that's all that the combat is. It gets tiring after a while. Like you said, it's a slog. No one wants to do that.
They also add abilities you can use. It looked interesting, but still, it's just like, what ways can I avoid actually using a melee weapon in combat so I don't have to play like this?
Again, it just doesn't translate to a computer game very well. Anything else?
No, that was it.
All right. I did watch a few movies. Talk about those before we get into this main movie. The Cat o' Nine Tails from 1971. So this is the second movie by Dario Argento. I don't have much to say about this movie. It's similar to the first movie. Another Arrow release. Transfer looks good. I didn't quite like this one as much as the first one, I guess. I'll just say 3 stars for that. Next movie I watched, The Mummy from 2017.
The Tom Cruise one?
Yep.
Okay.
The Tom Cruise one. The writing in this movie is just bad. The main character, Tom Cruise, is an American soldier, recon. He's deployed to Iraq. He takes advantage of that to loot artifacts from the country. So you're a soldier in war, and instead of doing your job, you go off to loot the country. And he has no consequences for this. They try and portray him as a charming rogue. You're just a terrible human being. You're a soldier and you're looting, and like, what kind of piece of shit are you? And how did anyone writing this think that this was a good idea? There's a scene in the movie where it's him and his buddy. They're both recon, and they're both there to loot, but they got to go down into the city where they think there's a bunch of insurgents, and his buddy's like, I don't think this is a good idea. So Tom Cruise cuts his water pouch, and he's like, you can either die out here in the desert, or you can go down into the city with me to fight all these insurgents and steal shit. It's like, you're just a piece of shit, man. Like, the other problem is it tries to jump between comedy, action, horror movie, and like it just fails at all of these. It had some interesting ideas. It just, the execution and the writing were bad. 2 out of 5 for that one. Not the worst movie I've ever seen. There was some action in it, I guess, but ugh. I watched a couple of M. Night movies. If you've seen an M. Night movie, you know the formula. I think I really only liked The Sixth Sense. Unbreakable was decent, I guess, but man, I don't know if I really liked any of the rest of his movies, so I should probably really just stop buying movies just because they're on sale.
That's how Steam gets you. I have so many games I'll probably never play, but we're like less than $5. So
yeah. I can't lose. So these movies, old, 2021. The ending of this movie has some interesting implications, but they don't explore that. I don't know. I started fast forwarding through this movie and it just wasn't for me. 1.5 stars. Trap from 2024. I like this one slightly better than old. 2 stars. I don't even want to talk about these movies really. Just they're there, I guess. Next one is another one of these Columbia Classics movies, The Last Picture Show from 1971. This is a coming-of-age story set in 1950s Texas. It was shot in black and white. I really like some of the black and white landscape shots in this. There's some really good-looking stuff. As well as coming of age, I think there's some existentialist themes in this as well. I like this movie quite a bit, actually. It was pretty good. 4 stars for this one. Almost considered going a little higher, but I'll say 4 stars. I do wish more of these Columbia Classics collections were reasonably priced. Like, they're outrageously priced, some of them. This collection, I forget what number it is, 3 or something, was a decent price, and so that's why I bought it, but the rest of them are just not reasonable. The next movie, The Wailing from 2016. This is a movie from South Korea. It has wide critical acclaim, so it has good scores on Metacritic and Rotten Tomatoes. So I'm in the minority here because I couldn't even finish this movie. It was just too stupid. Like, they have this ultra incompetent police force. I would say they're more on the level of like low-level security guards. I don't understand how these guys could be police officers. Like, are all police officers in South Korea this incompetent? Is it just because they're small? I don't know, but it's like, I just couldn't watch it. And on top of it, it's overly long. It's like 2 hours and 36 minutes long. I started fast forwarding through that one at about 45 minutes to an hour in, and then just skipped large chunks of the movie. So I didn't even really finish watching it. It's dumb. It's long. I lost interest. 1 star. The next thing I watched here, this Blu-ray, David Cronenberg's Early Works. This is another Arrow release. They did a good job with it. I think it's region 2 or UK region, or either you got to have a region-free player or my Oboe Blu-ray player. I got a little device that I can use the remote to switch the region on it. So this one, I don't think they have a region 1 release of it. There's 4 movies in it. Transfer from 1966, From the Drain from 1967, Stereo from 1969, and Crimes of the Future from 1970. So the first movie Transfer from 1966, I think David Cronenberg would have been 23 years old. The first two movies are like student films. And the next ones, I guess they're a little over an hour, so they're technically feature length, but they're still pretty small movies. Like I would call them maybe barely above the level of student film. These movies are all very queer. They're super gay. They're gay enough that it makes you wonder if Cronenberg was experimenting in college. That's how gay some of these movies are. I mean, hey, whatever, I don't care. But one of the movies suggests bisexualism is the natural state. The last movie, Crimes of the Future, the plots to these movies are just weird. They're shot in almost like a documentary type form. But in this last movie, so a guy's like, he's sick. He's leaking white cream from his nipple. The main character eats the stuff. And then there's like a bunch of foot fetish stuff going on with other men. Like, it's a weird movie and it is super gay. It's kind of funny to watch them, especially the last one was comical. But at the same time, you're like, what is going on in this movie? Like, you should probably only watch these movies if you really like Cronenberg's other movies. They're interesting to watch. I don't know if they're necessarily entertaining other than maybe the last one, just because of how super gay it is. I'm not going to rate any of these movies. Again, they're kind of almost more like student films, and you should probably only watch them if you like Cronenberg movies. But I thought they were interesting, especially the last one was fun to watch at some points. I think that's all the ones I have. We'll get into the main movie here, Kin-dza-dza. So this is from 1986. Apologies again up front for all the names I will probably not pronounce correctly. It was directed by man, I can't read my paper here. Directed by Georgi Danielia. It's a Mosfilm movie. This release is by Deaf Crocodile, so similar to Zero Grad. I talked about both Mosfilm and Deaf Crocodile in the last episode, so I won't talk about them here, but it's a Deaf Crocodile release. Synopsis for this movie, sort of from Wikipedia. Kin-dza-dza is a dystopian science fiction comedy in which two men from the Soviet Union accidentally travel through space, meeting two aliens from the Kin-dza-dza star system and their post-apocalyptic world. Visually, Transfer looks great. They're on a desert planet, so it's pretty sparse. I do like all the rusted metal interior that they have. They look pretty good. Not too many shots that really specifically stood out in this one to me. The opening theme, the music to this, like it's this goofy kind of music, which makes me laugh because it's like kind of instrumental and then they're just coo. So the movie opens, we meet Vladimir, or Uncle Vova as they call him. He's kind of a Soviet everyman. He gets home and his wife asks him to go buy some groceries, some stuff she forgot. When he's out, he runs into Getavan, who's the violinist. Getavan tells him, hey, there's a crazy guy over there. We need to help him. He's going to freeze. Like, he's fucking got no shoes on. And he's out here and...
I guess my first thing is, so you walk up to a stranger and say, this other stranger needs help.
I agree with you. That scene was a little like, he just chose this guy, but... I think they just did a bad job filming it. They should have just been like, he walked by this guy and saw him, and then Vladimir's like the closest person. He's like, hey, come help me with this guy, because he doesn't want to do it alone. So I understand what's going on here. I get where they're trying to go, but you're right. It was filmed kind of like he just picked this guy. And then Vladimir tells him, like, call the ambulance. But he's like, we need to help this guy. So he's like, all right, whatever. So they talk to the guy, and the guy tells him he's an alien, and he needs help figuring out where he is. He's like, I came into your planet, show me where it's at in the star system, and I have this device, and this device teleports me across the universe. And of course, they don't believe him. So Vladimir, quite logically, tells him, like, all right, tell you what, I'm going to push the button on this thing, and when it does nothing, then you need to come with us, man. Which makes sense, because he looks like a homeless crazy person. Except when he pushes the button, he's immediately transferred to a desert planet.
I guess the part I didn't understand about that, I understand Vladimir gets transported, but why does the violinist guy who's within a certain proximity get transferred? Because would that mean him by holding it, being close enough, he would also get transferred.
Yeah, it doesn't do a real good job of explaining exactly how this thing works, and maybe that kind of works to its benefit because when they don't explain this, you can kind of forgive. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, but in any event, both him and the violinist get teleported to this planet, and the other guy's nowhere to be found. So immediately, Vladimir's pissed off because he's like, God damn it worked. Which, I mean, fair enough. I probably would have done the same thing that he did, but he's upset. He's like, God damn it. He's like, where is that idiot? Did he stay behind? And I'm like, well, technically, you're the idiot. They're trying to figure out where they're at, and he's trying to speculate, are we on Earth, or what desert does this look like? Where are we at? So they're sitting out in the desert, and this ship comes along. And it's kind of interesting because you can actually see the strings on the model. I don't know if you noticed that, but it's very obvious.
Yeah,
Yeah, whatever. It's kind of low budget. But so the ship lands and we get a look at it. This thing is a fucking flying bucket of rust. It's the most unworthy craft they could possibly have come up with.
the whole. Okay, so I understand you're not rich, you can't afford the best stuff, but why is there flying ships? But there's not like speeders sort of thing where it's like land-based only, but moves with the same technology. And
yeah, I mean, the movie is low budget and it doesn't really explain a lot. And again, that probably works in its favor, but it's just funny when this ship lands because you're like, this thing is flying through the air. It's like the biggest safety hazard on the planet. So these two guys get out once the thing lands. One guy's in a cage. So it rolls out. He's standing in a cage.
yeah, I never understood. It happens so many times in the movie, and I was like, did I just miss the part where they explain why this is important?
Well, they did sort of explain it. They roll out. One guy's in a cage. The other guy's standing next to him. They start doing this dance. They're like the most sweaty, dirty. They're in like tattered rags, basically. They look like worse than a homeless person. They're in rough shape. But they start doing this dance. And then Vladimir's like, they want us to pay. Like, tell them we have no money. So they're trying to make a deal with these guys because they want to ride on this ship. And so they're kind of rifling through their belongings because they have this. The violinist got off an airplane, so he's got this violin and this bag of stuff. And they have all their giant coats, and he has the fur hat on that he's still wearing in the desert for some reason. So he gives him the jacket, he gives him the fur hat. He finds that bottle of vinegar and takes a drink, and he's like, ugh. He gives him this stuff and he's like, all right, is it a deal? They just take off and leave without him. So he's like, he gave him this stuff and they just left. So they're standing there. They're like, crap. So he pulls out his matches. He lights a match, lights a cigarette, and suddenly they come back and they land. And it turns out they're interested in this match. For whatever reason, they want this match. So he's like, all right, we'll trade you a match if you give us a ride in the ship. They get in the ship. The interior of the ship is just as rusted and grimy as the exterior of the ship. Like, this is rough looking. So they're riding around the ship for a while. It turns out these guys are telepathic, and they've learned to understand what Vladimir and Getavan are thinking. They learn they're on the planet called Pluk. It's in the Kin-dza-dza galaxy. They're going to use the match. They're trying to set up a deal to procure this hyperspace drive is kind of what it amounts to. At one point, Vladimir lights a match to smoke a cigarette and they lose their minds. They're ripping shit out of a cover and they hand him like this giant flint stick and he's like, this is what you light a cigarette with, this. So they're freaking out on him. We also learn they have this completely arbitrary caste system. You have the Chetlanians and the Patsaks. And the only way to tell the difference is this electronic device that shows either orange or green. That's the only way to tell the difference. So the Patsaks have to wear these bells, and they're subservient to the Chetlanians. And there's all these like rituals they have to do to show respect. So that's where the cage comes in. He's wearing that bell on his nose to show that he's subservient. The Patsaks also have to dance in cages.
Oh, okay.
So that's part of the respect ritual type thing. And then Getavan at one point, like when they're explaining, he's like, this is flagrant racism. Like, so then later we also learn that based on how much money you have, which the matchsticks are money, so I don't know if it's sulfur or whatever it is, but these are like the most valuable thing in the universe to these people. So how much money you have determines the color of pants you can wear. And there's additional respect rituals depending on what color of pants you're wearing. And then you also have the Etzalops, which essentially are the police, and they're kind of like higher social standing Chatlandians. They're extortionist police, basically. So there's a couple conversations here. I think it's Getaven, he asks. He's like, excuse me, Chatlians and Patsoks? He's like, is it a nationality? No. A biological factor? No. Persons from other planets? No. So what is the difference between them? He's like, are you colorblind? You can't tell the difference between orange and green?
That part was like, so what happens if you just mess with it and you just make yourself turn green?
Yeah, I'm like, how could anyone tell other than this device, and someone could change the device? It's completely arbitrary.
And wasn't there a part where they said other planets, it's the opposite? Where the ones with the Patsoks are actually the ones above? It's like, it is like, this entire system doesn't make sense. Like, who decided this, and why does everyone in this entire like galaxy follow this? Like,
yeah, it's completely arbitrary and nonsense, which is why it's funny. So another conversation they have about money is that if I have a little Ketz, which is the money, I have the right to wear yellow pants, and any Patsok should squat twice before me, not once. If I have a lot of Ketz, I have the right to wear crimson pants. So any Patsok should squat twice. Any Chatlandian should make coup, and Epsilop can't beat me at night. Like, they're talking again. He's like, you on Earth have a primitive society. You don't even have differences between the color of one's pants. And then they ask him, like, on Earth, how do you determine who before whom squats and how many times? And he's like, we just take a guess. Like, savages. So there's just all this funny nonsense going on in this world. The two guys' names, UF or UF, and the other guy is B. I think it's B, B, whatever. So UF and B. So they've arranged to, again, divide this device that will allow their spaceship to travel the galaxy. So it can fly, but they install this device and then they can perform interstellar travel in their giant bucket of rust. And I think they said they used to have one, but it got stolen when they landed on Pluk. They're going to use the matches that Vladimir has. These people that they're going to buy this device from, they only want to deal with Vladimir. So no one else can go in. Well, he gets swindled and they take all of his matches. They're back in the spaceship. We also learn they've converted all the water on the planet to fuel.
yes, okay, fuel is important, but considering water is vital to survival.
Well, he's like, should we tie these guys up and go check to see if there's a sea on the other end? And he's like, what are you, an idiot? Of course there's no seas. We've converted all the water to fuel. Well, and then we learn later on that in order for them to make water, which is a precious resource, they have to convert it back from the fuel that they originally converted from water. Listen, so here's the thing. Plukian society, it's a satire of capitalism. There's just dumb, backwards bullshit all in the service of capitalism. Especially the converting your entire planet's water to fuel and then slowly converting little bits of it back into water. Like, it's just, there's not even words for how stupid this is. At the end of the movie, when they offer to take BNUF back to Earth, he even says, like, a society that has no color discrimination of his pants. Like, there's no purpose. Like, they don't want to go because there's no strict, weird capitalist bullshit. As they're flying, Getaven goes to the bathroom. They eject him out because they say he's a waste of fuel, which I guess technically makes sense. If they would have thought about this logically, or at least if Vladimir would have, maybe he would have realized, like, we can go back for him or whatever. But immediately he's like, either stop and we go find him, or I'm going to light the last match that I have left. So they stop to pick him up. This is where we meet an Etzalop, which is the police force on this planet, who, again, their entire purpose seems more or less just to extort money from people. So he hits Vladimir over the head for basically being disrespectful, more or less, or just because he feels like it, who knows. Vladimir wakes up and just Instinctually, he lights a match to light his cigarette, and it's the last match that they have. The noise that Uef makes when he lights this match, he's just like, They leave Vladimir behind because he was only useful because he had this match. So they tell him to go find some sand, and then they just leave him. Vladimir finds Getavan. They're going through the desert. They run into another Patsak with a vehicle, which is this just makeshift cart, I guess.
You have flying ships, and you don't have anything better for land? Like, okay.
Well, I mean, this entire planet, there's like 25 people who live here, it seems like. You know, they want to ride, and they need to prove that they're useful to get a ride. So they start playing this violin that neither one of them actually knows how to play. And they start singing. It's the most horrible playing and singing imaginable. And she's like, wow, like, she acts like it's the greatest thing they've ever heard. Like, do they not have instruments anywhere in the galaxy? Like, no one knows how to sing?
Instead of eyes of the beholder, it's the ears of the beholder. I don't know.
It's awful, but she thinks it's the greatest thing ever. They're driving through, and they run into another guy who's Chatlanian. And so they got to all squeeze into this one cage. There's one cage, and it was just for her, the lady who's giving them a ride. But there's three of them, and because they're all Patsaks, they all have to perform in the cage. So they squeeze into the cage. They piss the guy off, and so he's trying to kill them with his gun that cuts people in half. But it doesn't work, so he's like, hold on, I'll be right back. So she tells him to get out and push, and then she takes off and leaves him behind because she doesn't want to get annihilated by this thing. They run away. They have this brief intermission in the middle of the movie that's like a language learning or whatever. You know, it teaches you the Pluk language. There's like 5 words in this language. And then there's a word for fuel. There's a word for money. There's a word for spaceship. You know, there's like 5 words. And then there's the word ku, which is like an insult or a swear word. And then there's the word ku, which is every other word in the language. So Vladimir and Getavan are traveling through the desert, and they find this cage, and they decide they're going to do their own singing because the lady liked it. They run into Uf and B again, who have ran out of fuel. So they're basically stranded, and they're doing their performance. Getavan and Vladimir have perfected their performance. They get into this little wire cage that they fashioned together. I could not stop laughing when they started performing again in this cage, because it just... This whole scene is silent. They walk in this cage, and then he gets the violin, and they start singing. And it is so bad, but it's just funny. And then everyone, it's like the biggest hit in the world. Like, this entire planet loves this noise. Like, it's awful. It's a hit, so they're gathering some money. So they're trying to get enough money together to fuel the spaceship so they can kind of fly to the center of this planet, which is where their major society is at, or their major hub is at, I guess. So Vladimir is like a foreman, you know, he builds things. He fashions wheels on the bottom of the spaceship, and they start pushing it through the desert. It's kind of unrealistic because you would die without water trying to push this thing through the desert, but they start pushing the fucking spaceship on wheels through the desert. I think this is the first time they introduced the leader of the planet in a hologram. And we learn that if you don't pay immediate respects to the hologram, and they find out it's like life in prison. Eventually, they make it to the center of the planet. They want to learn Earth's location because UF and B learn that Earth has more or less an unlimited supply of matches. And so they want Vladimir and Getavan to pay him all these matchsticks. So they need to learn where Earth's at because they don't know. So they go to center. As they're traveling through this city, this underground city that they have to pay respects at like 5 different locations to different people. So they all got to like stop and dance in the middle of a moving cart, by the way. So the cart stops moving. They do their little dance or whatever the nonsense they have to do is. And then the cart takes off again and like almost throws them out of the fucking cart as it starts moving, which is also where we see the place where they reconvert fuel into water.
As they're traveling, you just see all those people doing this motion in the buckets. Like,
it's all nonsense. It's all nonsense. They're trying to learn Earth's location, so they take it to whatever little shop in this place that can tell them. So I also like how they're trying to learn the location of Earth. And she's like, thieves! Turns out Getaven stole the crystal out of the machine because he's a klepto. Throughout the entire movie, he keeps trying to steal stuff because he wants to take it back to Earth. Because he basically like, this is another planet. We've made this huge discovery. Like, we have to take something back to show people. But that translates to him just stealing everything. If it's not bolted down, he's trying to put it in his pockets.
Yeah, they finally figure out it's like, it's just a piece of glass, and he puts it back and acts like there's no problem. It's like, you almost ruined our chance to go back.
He's like, I just thought it was nothing. He's like, well, then why did you take it? Like, stop stealing stuff. So they learn where the location to Earth is. They don't buy this interstellar device. For whatever reason, UF and B leave them again. Vladimir goes to an Etstelop and basically says to him, those guys ran off with our stuff. Or Getaven says that. And he's like, all right, well, pay me and I'll go chase after him. And he's like, you witnessed them. They didn't bow and give courtesy to the image of the leader. And he's like, if you don't go chase them down, then I'm going to tell your bosses. And he's like, of course I did something and I saw it and I hit the button or whatever. So he kind of threatens this guy. You saw an egregious crime and you didn't do anything. He convinces the cop to go chase him down. The cop brings him back. They sentence them to prison because they didn't bow in front of the hologram of the leader of this planet. So they're kind of sitting out in the desert trying to figure out what they're going to do at this point. The guy who they met at the beginning of the movie teleports back in. And he's like, all right, I can take you home. He's like, also, what kind of crazy idiot just randomly hits the button to this thing? Which was amusing, but anyone would have done the same thing. But he gives him the opportunity. He's like, all right, time to go home. Vladimir, for some crazy reason, has a guilty conscience that he got UF and B put in prison. And so decides he can't go home. He has to break them out of prison. Like, he has to do something to get them out of prison. So he's not going home. And I'm like, what are you thinking?
There's so many times throughout the movie that UF and B just leave them because they're no longer useful. It's like, clearly they don't actually care. And they want you around because you're useful. And the moment you're not, they don't need you. Or you finally learn where Earth is and they want all this, infinite money from all these matchsticks. And for some apparent reason, they leave and don't get the thing. Either, well, we know where Earth is now, so we don't need you. And then the part where you said Vladimir asked him, like, well, do you eventually want to go to Earth with us to live rather than just get matchsticks and leave? And he's like, oh, the caste system is too important. And then the very thing you say is so important, you forget to bow to your leader. I was like, obviously you care enough to where you don't want to go to like a utopia to you on Earth.
Yeah, I mean, they don't care about the caste system so much as they want to be at the top of the caste system. It's not so much that they care about following the rules so much as they just want to get to the top of this system. That's what they care about. So he's like, who wants to go to a backwards planet where they don't even have different colors of pants and no one bows to each other? Again, the movie is a satire on capitalism and it's talking shit about capitalism. In the reverse of that, they're trying to kind of portray Vladimir and even Getaven to an extent as well as they're these good socialist Soviets. Even though these guys, like you said, have left them multiple times throughout the movie when they're not useful and they've done all this stuff, Vladimir still has a conscience. And he's like, I was the reason why they got sentenced to prison. We can't leave him behind. So in a way, it's kind of trying to portray Soviets as the good guys. And in this movie, they are. So they reject this guy's offer. It turns out Getaven stole one of the devices that allows interstellar travel. So they're rifling through his stuff and they dump this thing out. And Vladimir, because he actually saw one and Getaven didn't, he's like, where did you get this? And he's like, I don't know. I found it on a shelf somewhere. Like, he's randomly stealing shit from everywhere. And he's like, this is the device that we needed to travel. So now that they have this device, they decide that they're going to try and perform because they can perform pretty well, at least by this planet's standards. So they're going to earn enough money to buy UF and B out of jail. So they're doing all these performances. I like how they meet the guy who stole the matches from them, and he's wearing crimson pants. So he makes them perform for them, and he gives them money. Finally, out after enough performing, the Ep17 guy comes in, and they've just had enough. Like, they're done dealing with this nonsense, capitalistic. There's a new edict. The leader of the planet has decided that all the Patsaks have to wear muzzles now and pretend to be happy. And they've just had enough. Gedivin tries to attack him, and the Ep17 hits him, and then Vladimir kicks him in the nuts or something. And so they take this guy hostage. They break into the compound of the leader of this planet. He's basically an idiot. He's barely a functional person, more or less.
How did you become the richest guy and leader of the planet when you can't even
do
any critical level thinking whatsoever?
Yeah, so they break in, and he's just a moron. So they're going through this facility. They break UF and B out of jail. I like how after they break him out, Gedivin wants to take the coffin jail cell thing that they're in with him. And it's not small. Like, it's the size of a coffin, and he starts trying to push it through the desert. And he's like trying to get Vladimir to help him. Vladimir's like, leave it behind. Like, what are you doing? Let's go. Let's go.
Oh, I forgot the part where they break in on the leader and he's in the bath. And one of the weirdest things I've ever seen where he's like guard is trying to do the performance. He's on his hands and knees and he has like this purple massage thing on his back or something. It was one of the weirdest things I was like, this is amusing to you, where it's like, I don't understand.
It is a really strange scene. He seems homosexual is the implication here. And so they're flirting and doing whatever weird stuff. But yeah, it is what exactly are they doing?
It didn't make sense. Is it yeah, whatever.
It's more nonsense with this movie, right? That's what it is. It's more movie nonsense. So they rescue these guys. They fly away in their ship. So they go to UF and B's planet, and this is what you were talking about. On this planet, arbitrarily, the Patsaks were in charge, and the Chatlanians have to give respect to them, which they seem to not really care at this point. So it turns out they said that they were on tour, and the planet, I think Pluk, essentially annihilated their planet and killed everyone there. And he asks them why they did it, and he's like, well, because we didn't do it to them first. The logic here is that they killed us before we killed them. And they're like, well, why'd they do that? Well, so we didn't kill them. It's just nonsense, right? It's all nonsense. Their plan is, the planet is really cheap, so let's buy the planet because it has no air or atmosphere. And then we can buy air, and then we can charge people, and we'll split the planet. We'll take half, and you and Gedivin can take half. They've hatched this scheme because it turns out Earth is in this special zone. And in the ship that they have, they can't get there without traveling through or by this planet Alpha. And I guess this planet Alpha will turn them into cacti. So they're like, it's impossible. We can't do it. So in maybe the only selfless act that UF and B do in this entire movie, they decide, all right, fine. We're going to help you. We're going to put you in the catapult toilet thing. We're going to try and fly by the planet. We're going to eject you out into the planet of Alpha, and then we're going to try and fly away. So they kind of already know that this isn't going to work, but they're wearing off on them a little bit. They're doing something finally that's kind of not self-serving. So they eject them onto this planet Alpha, and it turns out planet Alpha is this lush garden planet. But UF and B get caught, and so they're transferring them or turning them into these cacti or something. The people from Alpha are like, you're from Earth, and it's our mandate that we need to send you back to where you're from. And of course, Vladimir, again, his conscience just won't let him. He has to rescue these guys. And so he's trying to negotiate, and he's like, can we just let him go? Can we do this? And they're like, we can't do it. But it turns out these people from the planet Alpha can actually send them back in time. So they can choose whatever they want to do. He comes up with this plan. They're going to send them back in time, He has all his memories. They know that they have the device that they can use the interstellar travel. They time it so that they break into this compound, rescue UF and B right when the guy who they originally met teleports to find them. This is basically the end of the movie. They've rescued them. They give UF and B the device that allows them to travel throughout the universe, and then they travel back with the guy they met on Earth. And that's where they offer UF and B, come to Earth with us. You'll be welcome. Like, you're spacemen, and we've never seen them before. And they're like, we're not going to some backwards planet where people don't have different colors of pants. So they're back on Earth. They've lost their memories, essentially. It's almost like they went back in time, kind of like from Alpha, in a way. They've lost their memories. They meet each other again on the street. They don't recognize each other. But a tractor drives by with a flashing light like the police guys have. And then they both immediately like bow and do the coup thing. Let's do scores. And do scores?
Yeah.
Oh, man. I broke my own rule. I was supposed to do a half and I did a 0.5. So I'm going to give this 3.5 stars. This movie is a satire on capitalism. And they do a pretty good job with that given the budget of the movie. It's made in the Soviet Union in 1986. This movie is kind of a slow burn. It's funny and there's a lot of funny stuff to it, but it is a little bit more of a slow burn. I don't think the message here is as important as, like, say, Zero Grad, and I don't think this movie has as much to say, which is fine, but I don't think I liked it quite as much as that movie. That movie was a little more striking in a lot of ways. This one uses a lot more comedy, which again is fine, but it's a little bit slow in a lot of cases. I like it. It's funny. I'm glad they released it, a Blu-ray of it. It's a neat movie to have. Kind of an interesting piece of history, this science fiction film that was made in 1986 in the Soviet Union. I like it, so 3.5 stars.
I did 2.5 stars. There are certain aspects where they first meet that guy who swindles them. I was like, okay, so these people have a certain level of, we understand the rules, but we have a way to people we think aren't worthy to steal from them. But why doesn't everyone do that sort of thing? It's like they're so subservient to people above them, but why don't they think of, like, well, if I just take what he has, then he'll be below me sort of thing. It's like everyone seems so self-serving, and yet you want to follow the rules so closely that you can't swindle people above you, but you're okay with being below you. But if you can't prove that you swindled someone above you, like, and they just lost what they had, it's, I don't know, it just, certain parts where certain people seem more smart than others, and yet literally the leader, like you said, this is so borderline, like, has mental development issues.
Yeah, like a cognitive disability.
Yeah, how is that guy the leader? Like, so, like, the guy with the crimson pants who swindled them seems like he'd be smarter and, or like, more worthy to be a leader because he's so self-serving. Like,
yeah, well, I mean, a lot of these people are self-serving, but again, the whole point of that is it's completely arbitrary. Like, all this stuff is arbitrary nonsense. So it doesn't, here's the thing. Leaders oftentimes are not the smartest guys there are. You have people who are idiots. That's sometimes how it works out. So it's a satire on capitalism. There are people who are good at swindling and they want to get to the top of the food chain. There are people who are at the top of the food chain who are complete morons.
I feel like almost the majority of the movie was them just moving to the desert, finding random people to try and, like, trade. There were certain parts where I was so bored of, like, can we just get to the interesting part rather than just meeting another self-serving person in the desert to try and get something out of them, or just, like, there were so many parts where it's just like, how many times are we going to run into the same scene over and like, how many times in the desert they travel somewhere, they need something, and then through some weird convoluted plan or, like, coincidence, they somehow make it to the next stop. And it just feels like more than half the movie was just doing that over and over again. It just got so boring to me.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, again, this movie is a slow burn, and it kind of does that so that you learn about the planet and you learn about, the nonsense that's going on here. And again, this movie is pretty low budget if you're looking at it. So they worked well with what they had, in my opinion. And there's a funny message to it for sure. But I get the criticism of it's slow and there could have been boring parts. I wasn't bored during this movie, but I understand the criticism of the boring parts for sure. So
I could have given it a 3 because like there were parts that I found hilarious and just the arbitrary part was just amusing, but there's just certain things. There's a system, but there's people who can feel like they can get away with things and yet they don't take advantage. Like,
so I listen. The movie goes out of it's a satire. It goes out of its way to say this is all nonsense and like they don't adhere to any of these rules or really try and define them very clearly. And the reason for that is because they want to play loose with it.
I don't like that aspect. I feel like if you're going to make arbitrary rules, just go complete nonsense and make everyone just ridiculous. But they didn't, and just I got really bored during parts. Like I almost felt like certain parts I was like I could just skip this, and it wouldn't take away from the movie. So
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. All right. Well, anything else?
that was it.
All right. Later, man.
Yep.
Yeah, this movie was a little slower than I had remembered. I mean, there were some legitimately really funny parts, but they were kind of sparse, I guess. The Crimes of the Future one was definitely a weird, super gay movie. Fucking playing with each other's feet and stuff. I was like, I don't know if I could act in this movie. Like, I don't know if I could sit and fucking play with another man's foot.
I guess if you're paid enough money.
The plot of that movie, I think, was something like there was some kind of plague caused by makeup and it basically killed all the women on the planet or something. And then it mutated, so it started killing the men on the planet. And that's where the like people start getting the weird foaming. And then the one guy's foaming out his nipples. And he's like, then he eats the foam. And you're like, what are you doing? Like, no!